I'm Rob Genieser, the managing partner of the Environmental Technologies Fund, or ETF Partners. We're all about sustainability in our fund. So we were one of the original venture capital funds set up to do something about the climate emergency. The first fund was raised in 2007. We're on to our fourth fund. And we're all about doing something positive through working with entrepreneurs who want to make an impact. At the end of the day, we're investing across maybe 4 or 5 verticals. We're interested in the mobility transition. We're interested in reforming the utility sector or the energy sector. We're very interested in how you can use data for good. And then finally, how you can digitize agriculture and help the sustainable consumer as he or she become more interested in environmental topics. So we invest across Europe, including the UK, and that's the only place that we invest. And so we are very much a pan-European fund. We're looking for opportunities across Europe. However, Greece has really been a standout in the last few years. There have been some great businesses that have been started there around very specific, entrepreneurs, I would say, that have a specific capability. For example, we backed a gentleman who's in the AI space, who's really one of the leading guys for Europe, working in the shipping vertical, which is a place that Greece is strong. So what you're finding in a place like Greece is really smart folks that are building businesses in verticals that are perhaps specific or unique to Greece. So Hellas Direct is the leading digital insurer for, if you would, Central and Southern Europe. It started in Cyprus and Greece, and it's become one of the largest insurers in that part of the world. What's exciting about it are always the founders. So Emilios and Alexis are outstanding entrepreneurs that have a vision for where they want to take that company. They've been focused specifically on two major verticals, which is how do you bring insurance to the property sector, how do you bring it to the motor sector? And what we're really interested, I think, from a sustainability fund is how you can use insurance as a force for good. So what's happening in the world today, of course, the climate risk is evolving very quickly. It's becoming a real problem across the Mediterranean. You have forest fires, you have floods, you have real problems. And this is one of the solutions that you can use to help the world adapt. And so if you can get, if you would, more people in that region to buy the insurance to ameliorate that risk and to hopefully build back green, that's a very exciting opportunity. So you can use insurance as a force for good. And that was part of the reason to invest. And again, if you look at Greece, what's very interesting there is Greece is coming off a very tough time. And people, frankly, couldn't even afford insurance. And now, of course, you're in a situation where the economy is really taking off. People have money to spend. Their asset values are growing. And they want to protect those assets. So you're quite hopeful that, a combination of people seeing a changing risk environment, trying to do something about it, i.e., and also having the funds to go and buy the insurance, hopefully that company will do very well. Yeah, well, certainly in the marine vertical, there are a lot of companies that are being started in Greece. And it's amazing how success begets success. So if you have one company, which was Deep Sea Technologies, not just receive the money, but grow a very exciting business. They got the Japanese to invest in that business, and they eventually exited that business. Other entrepreneurs see that and say, we can do that as well. So I think that what you see is a growing cadre of folks that have been successful. Microsoft has bought a company by the name of Softomotive. You had AMAT buy a company, Think Silicon. You have Google throughout the region. So a combination of entrepreneurs doing well and the big tech companies in means that more people will start businesses and there'll be more opportunities for folks like me to invest. But I think, to be honest with you, we have to look across the verticals. We shouldn't focus on any one, although Greek certainly has strengths in places, for example, like maritime technology. Certainly continues for the better. I think there's more capital coming into the market, which is what the Greek entrepreneur needs. There's now more success through exits, which is what we as investors need. But also, I think the entrepreneurs benefited from as well. There's more focus from multinationals that are setting up shops in Greece. And there's continued support from the government to do it. The government was on a big mission. I think something like 2% of Greece's GDP is tech-related. And if you look at a place like Israel, it's more like 18%. So there's a big push on the part of government to try to move the tech sector forward. And I think that's really accelerated over the last few years. To be honest with you, I think there's excellent across the European continent. I think what all these countries benefit is something very simple, is that people in Europe get it. They know that they need to do something about the climate emergency. And whether you're a government or a large corporation or even Joe and Joan blog in the street, you feel like you should move in your lifestyle to a more sustainable position. So I think that you're going to see entrepreneurs build great businesses across Europe. And I think in places like Greece, where the climate emergency is so obvious, every time there's a big flood or a major fire, I think the push is going to even be stronger in perhaps places like that. Well, they've taken some very aggressive steps just recently. For example, they've expanded visas for tech entrepreneurs to come from other parts of the world to set up businesses there and staff businesses there. Like the UK, they've also moved to say, if you're a graduate of a great university, you can come to Greece. So I think movement of people will be very important for companies there because everywhere else in the world, there's a premium on getting the best talent to your startups. So I think continuing focus on the mobility of people is going to be really important for Greece. There are always structural things, which is, okay, we invest in a young company, a small company, and how do we make it big? How do we make it obvious that their solution has a potentially a global impact? Really showing that off, building those partnerships, developing the global relationships for Greek companies and frankly European companies in general is really important. Well, I think there are models you can look at. Aforementioned Israel, but Israel has, I think, a specific advantage in that they have a lot of military defense spending that underpins the rise of technology there, and it's an established ecosystem today. But that's always the model that European countries hold out to be like, because I think that's been a very successful model in the general region. But there are other places. If you look at a place like Singapore, for example, I used to be a part of Temasik's global investing team. And a place like Singapore, it did not have a venture community in the 90s, and now something like $10 billion a year is invested in tech, through Singaporean entities. So if you take a place like Greece that maybe has $500 million invested in Greek entrepreneurs on an annual basis, or perhaps larger if you believe other studies, why not have it be 10 times the size in 10 years' time? Certainly other parts of the world have done it, so why not Greece? The answer is Blue Ground, I think, is really an impressive company. They have obviously raised significant sums to get to where they are today, but it's a wonderful service that I personally used. And I think that they've done something really clever, the way they secure properties on a global basis for long-term leases. And, they took a page out of the Airbnb book and went, to better the model or perhaps to bring the model to a slightly different customer base. That's really an amazing story because not only are they a good company today, I think they survived the pandemic, which, where a lot of other businesses like this disappeared. So all power to them. To answer that in a serious way, I think the answer is probably very specific to the fact that Greece has done so well recently, having come out of some very difficult times. And you have an entrepreneurial culture that's not just in the tech sector, but is throughout society. To some extent, a lot was taken away from Greece, and everybody now has to build back in an entrepreneurial fashion. The other thing is that, again, coming back to the government is trying to reform the country very, very quickly and move it forward. So a combination of people wanting or pushing for change, the government enabling change, capital being made available. I mean, I think there's 30 billion plus that has come from Europe to stimulate the Greek economy, and that capital being used wisely, right? I think something like 8 billion of that is going into the digitization of tech. So they're making all the right decisions, and they have a very entrepreneurial group of people. So I think it's a very exciting place to be.